a way which will sidestep those issues.
Thank you for the clarification. But as with any consideration of extending permitted development rights, there are always unintended consequences, and that is why the Planning Office Society, Historic England and others did not see the merit, and the case wasn't made to extend them in this case. And it wasn't just permitted development rights, but the other methods as well. Now, the British Property Federation welcomed the proposals, but even they said it was unlikely to deliver a significant amount of new homes, one of the key aims, I believe, of the Honourable Member, as he said in his speech. So what might be the reasons to retain the status quo, which is what I'm suggesting? Proposals to develop upwards can go through the planning application process. What is wrong with that? Planning application provides notification, consultation, transparency and accountability, whereas extending permitted development rights doesn't. If any proposal to build up higher makes sense in that town or that village centre, if it works with neighbouring buildings, if the space standards and design provide good quality housing in which the people living there will thrive, then it should be granted planning permission. But to deny that community and parish council the ability to comment, to deny planning officers the ability to negotiate improvements, to deny locally elected councillors the opportunity to determine the application, just opens the gates for unpopular, unwarranted and possibly bad developments. And if the local council does make a bad planning decision, possibly in the face of fierce local opposition to that application, then there is always the opportunity to appeal to the impartial planning inspectorate. No one denies that enabling more homes in a town or village centre is a good thing for the life and vibrancy of that town centre.
Thank you. I certainly agree with the sentiment of what the Honourable Lady is saying, and thank you for giving way. But isn't it also the case that it's very difficult for the very kinds of people who my honourable friend was talking about in his speech today, people who want to do small extensions or small buildings, to actually bring those sorts of planning appeals that the Honourable Lady talks about, and actually sometimes these issues can have bad decisions made because around times of elections in local authorities, planning issues can become very contentious.
Having been a councillor for many, many years, I'm well aware of that pressure, which is why we have the appeals system, which is why we have a check and balance. And let's remember, one can only get away with refusing a planning application if that refusal is made on good planning grounds. And officers are there to advise councillors, and if councillors ignore officers, it goes to appeal, and if it was a good application and refused for the wrong reasons, then the inspectorate overturns that refusal and the application is granted. But the planning system is there for a reason. It is there to protect communities. It is there to ensure good development. It is ensure that there are appropriate facilities, amenity, space standards, parking provision, and so on. When you extend permitted development rights, you lose a lot of that. And I'm sure that the Honourable Member for Weston-super-Mare does not want to see a load of high-rise buildings going up that do not have basic standards and provide a basic quality of life both for the people living there in those dwellings and the people in the surrounding dwellings.
Just to repeat the point that I'm not proposing huge high-rise dwellings in this proposal at all. I'm proposing things which can be built up to the height of the local tree line, for example. So 4 or 5 stories at the outside. And I would just gently say to her that if the planning system works so bleeding brilliantly, then we would have 4 or 5 stories in towns, market towns and seaside towns around the country at the moment, and we haven't. And I doubt very strongly that is because communities everywhere have roundly decided that they can't live with anything that's more taller than 2 stories. I suspect it's because there is a chilling effect, because people are being discouraged from putting these things in because of officialdom knocking them back all the time.
Well, with the greatest respect to the honourable member, I believe he was in the same meeting that I was in last week, where we talked about flats, converting empty space above shops into residential. And what we heard in that very interesting and informative round table was that there are a whole host of barriers to converting empty space above shops, and the same applies for the proposal to increase heights. The planning system was not suggested as the main barrier. There are other barriers. There are structural. There are security. There is the issue of funding. There is the issue of, is it worth the cost? Because except in very high-priced property areas like those that my honourable friends and I represent, it's just not worth landowners' while to do it. There are a range of barriers, May I progress, Mrs. Gillam? No one denies that enabling more homes into town centres is a good thing for the life and vibrancy of a town centre. I wholeheartedly agree with that sentiment. But the honourable member could do better, as I've just said, than to blame the planning system for the lack of delivery. The planning system can deliver what he wants now. He's brought no evidence that this little tweak of the planning system will actually deliver more housing, let alone more affordable housing. He's made circumstantial links between more supply, of which this would provide a tiny amount, and that it might provide a crashing fall in housing prices. There is no evidence. And in terms of problems with when you extend permitted development rights, as we saw with the coalition governments that's now been enshrined permanently, of being able to convert employment space into residential without planning permission. So what we saw, and we saw it in Hounslow, in the borough that I represent half of, we saw poor quality housing, poor space standards, inadequate parking, poor issues around everything from refuse disposal to access in and out. And this is not providing good quality housing, nor actually is it providing affordable housing. And the other extension of permitted development rights that was enacted under the coalition government was that of allowing homeowners to extend the rear of their homes not by 3 metres under then permitted development rights, but by another 3 metres, so a total of 6 metres. And of course, those kind of developments have a massive impact on the neighbours. And that is why we have to really be very, very careful if we want to extend permitted development rights. And on this side, we do not support them. Of course, planning can be done at height with good design, but there's no reason, as I have said, why that can't be done through the normal planning application process, through that through that transparent and accountable system. In the years that I was a planning committee member, and some of those as chair, we granted many applications for increasing the heights of buildings and homes, or building newer ones, and we refused some terrible ones. The system allows for that to do. We have a massive housing shortage in West London. We also have the development industry. The prices are high enough, it's worth their while. We saw the applications. As I say, we approved the good ones, we refused the bad ones. The market in West London is doing exactly what the honourable member desires.
The lady for giving way yet again. She's being very generous and very kind. Can I gently say to her that I think that probably